What's up, YouTube? It's your boy Johnny, back here with another reaction video. And today, ladies and gentlemen, I want to drop off some knowledge. I got a short clip from a Thomas Sowell book. I'm not sure if you've heard of Mr. Thomas Sowell. If you haven't, you definitely want to check him out. This man is next level brilliant, knowledge for days, facts on facts on facts. And he's needed in a time where everything is distorted by someone else's agenda. And a lot of us have been misled to think about, slavery and the founding fathers and what has really happened to us. And last night I was reading about Napoleon Bonaparte Drew, who was a slave that became a multimillionaire, and just so much knowledge is out here in the world. This is your first time to the channel. If you could hit the like button for me, and if you could also consider subscribing to the channel. The goal is to reach 1 million subscribers, but if we can get 100 million subscribers and start 100 million thought-provoking conversations, I'm a firm believer we can kill all of the narratives going around in the world today. We're just spirits encased in human flesh trying to figure out this thing called life. So if you like what you hear in the video, please share the message far and wide. Now today we're going to talk about the truth about the founding fathers owning slaves.
One of the reasons our children do not measure up academically to children in other countries is that so much time is spent in American classrooms twisting our history for ideological purposes. How would you feel if you were a Native American who saw the European invaders taking away your land? Is the kind of question our children are likely to be confronted with in our schools. It is a classic example of trying to look at the past with the assumptions and the ignorance of the present.
And one thing I've always said is it's so unfair to try to look at 1619 or 1776 or 1865 through the concepts and the lenses of 2022. Totally different time frame, totally different era. Life is different, and you're doing yourself a huge disservice to try to say, well, I would have did this back in the... Without that happening, there is no you, moron, idiot. Without Christopher Columbus, none of us are sitting here today having this conversation about Christopher Columbus. You have to appreciate the past, the good, the bad, and the ugly, so you can pay attention to what's happening in your future.
One of the things we take for granted today is that it is wrong to take other people's land by force. Neither American Indians nor the European invaders believed that. Both took other people's land by force, as did Asians, Africans, Arabs, Polynesians, and others. The Indians no doubt regretted losing so many battles, but that is wholly different from saying that they thought battles were the wrong way to settle the question of who would control the land. Today's child cannot possibly put himself or herself in the mindset of Indians centuries ago without infinitely more knowledge of history than our schools have ever taught. Nor is understanding history the purpose of such questions. The purpose is to score points against Western society. In short, propaganda has replaced education as the goal of too many educators. School.
And right there, propaganda is one of my favorite words. And I say that because I feel like you can walk down any street and ask 10 people what's propaganda, and 7 of them won't know. They won't say that billboard right there, the TV shows that come on, the ads that are on my phone. Everything around you is propaganda. And the average person is so caught up in the matrix that they're just a sheep at this point.
Schools are not the only institutions that twist history to score ideological points. Never forget that they owned lots of slaves was the huge headline across the front page of the New York Times Book Review section in its December 14, 2004 issue. Inside was an indictment of George Washington and Thomas Jefferson. Of all the tragic facts about the history of slavery, the most astonishing to an American today is that, although slavery was a worldwide institution for thousands of years, nowhere in the world was slavery a controversial issue prior to the 18th century. People of every race and color were enslaved, and enslaved others. White people were still being bought and sold as slaves in the Ottoman Empire, decades after American blacks were freed. Everyone hated the idea of being a slave, but few had any qualms about enslaving others. Slavery was just not an issue, not even among intellectuals, much less among political.
Right, like everybody hates the rich until these Black Lives Matter activists get rich and buy mansions, right? All these celebrities hate the rich people until they go mingle with the rich people and live in their neighborhood. Like LeBron James says that it's tough being black in America. I can guarantee you LeBron hasn't lived in a black neighborhood since he probably was in high school.
Political leaders until the 18th century, and then it was an issue only in Western civilization. Among those who turned against slavery in the 18th century were George Washington, Thomas
Oh,
Jefferson, Patrick Henry,
oh,
and other American
you hear
leaders.
that?
You could research all of 18th century Africa or Asia or the Middle East without finding any comparable rejection of slavery there. But who is singled out for scathing criticism today? American leaders of the 18th century.
Go figure.
Deciding that slavery was wrong was much easier than deciding what to do with millions of people from another continent, of another race, and without any historical preparation for living as free citizens in a society like that of the United States, where they were 20% of the total population. It is clear from the private correspondence of Washington, Jefferson, and many others that their moral rejection of slavery was unambiguous, but the practical question of what to do now had them baffled. That would remain so for more than half a century. In 1862, a ship carrying slaves from Africa to Cuba, in violation of a ban on the international slave trade, was captured on the high seas by the U.S. Navy. The crew were imprisoned, and the captain was hanged in the United States, despite the fact that slavery itself was still legal at the time in Africa, in Cuba, and in the United States. What does this tell us? That enslaving people was considered an abomination, but what to do with millions of people who were already enslaved was not equally clear.
Good question.
That question was finally answered by a war in which one life was lost for every 6 people freed. Maybe that was the only answer, but don't pretend.
One life was lost for every 6 people freed. Society wants us to look through this racial lens of white supremacy. What about all these white people that died for the freedom of black people? Does their life not matter? Because I think that would be the definition of all lives matter, is that you had a ton of white people go and fight and give up their life for the freedom of some black people who they'll never know, never meet. I'm sitting here right now recording this video because some white guys went and fought some other white guys for some black people's freedom. And I'm taught to think that white people are my enemy? Propaganda, brainwashing. I'm going to drop this little note in there that yes, a Republican freed the slaves, Lincoln. The original Civil Rights Act was signed by a Republican president, U.S. Grant. But I also want to note, since 1965, no Republican has got more than 15% of the black vote. So if Democrats own slaves, and Democrats have got majority of the vote since the 1936 election, if Republicans can't get more than 15% of black votes, I'm not the smartest cookie, but that sounds like the Democrats still have you enslaved. You're not physically enslaved because you can move from Kansas to Kentucky to Colorado to New York. Mentally, you're still enslaved. You're still a Democrat puppet.
And today that it was an easy answer, or that those who grappled with the dilemma in the 18th century were some special villains, when most leaders and most people around the world at that time saw nothing wrong with slavery. Incidentally, the September 2004 issue of National Geographic had an article about the millions of people still enslaved around the world right now. But where was the moral indignation about that?
Yes, we can talk about the slave trade that's going on currently in Libya that fell apart under Obama's regime. Um, there's slavery happened all over the world, yet we want to talk about America. We can talk about what's going on in China right now. But nobody cares about that if they can't make a dollar off of it. Like I said, man, the civil rights movement is a civil rights entertainment industry. Because it's not to fix the inner city. It's not to help the people impoverished. It's just to make a dollar off racism. And it's so profitable to say white man bad, toxic masculinity. But the only time the world cares about a black man is when he's shot dead in the street or if he's wearing a dress. That's the only time the world cares about a white man, I guess, either, is when he's wearing a dress. Yeah, not get shot in the street, because we're not talking about the violence that goes on with white guys. That doesn't matter to the world. But if you're a white guy and you're part of LGBTQ, come on down. Front row seat for you. And that's the issue, is it's an attack on masculinity. Because nations have been stolen as men. We comfortable as fighting. I understand life is a battle. And if it's me or you, then hey, may the best man win. We are comfortable with being warriors. And that's why they want to remove us out the situation. But if you think when you take out a masculine men out of America, if somebody else not going to come take this nation and conquer it, humans are always going to conquer. That's just who we are by nature. So this whole kumbaya, let's get along, that's just not ever going to happen. And I was reading The Miseducation of the Negro, and it said every group of people who have always tried to go, the Karl Marx route, have always came back to the competitive side of life, because competition is what creates anything. And as humans, you would think we know that. America is an idea. We wouldn't have airplanes if the Wright brothers were social justice warriors, I don't think Ralph Waldo Emerson and Napoleon Hill and Bob Proctor and Earl Nightingale have an issue with a young black man learning from them and sharing that knowledge to the world. Because everything is an idea, and we're meant to share ideas so everyone can flourish and live abundantly. But the world wants to keep you small-minded and think that your skin color has a say-so on where you can go in life. My skin color has nothing to do with me on my way to be a millionaire, a multimillionaire. Kanye West is a billionaire. Oh, I'm touching some millions, and I'm going to inspire. I think everybody deserves to be a millionaire. Write it down. Get your notebook. Write it down. I'm going to be a millionaire. How are you going to accomplish it? I don't know. You don't have to know it either. But set big goals. Shoot for the moon. If you don't make it, at least you land for the stars, baby. Fire track by Thomas Sowell. I mean, not track. I'm sorry. Fire video. Knowledge, man. I love sharing knowledge, man. The highest human act is to inspire. And if you can open someone's mind, man, you change their reality. When you let someone know that everything starts as an idea that you can think and grow rich, you literally can think your way into wealth. Make it happen, baby. No faith is needed around you, and there's unlimited faith within you. Till next time, like the video, share the video, subscribe to the channel, and we are out. Peace.